Well, good afternoon, Paul Linton, CEO of Northland Inc. It's really great to have you with us here today and to be talking about why regions matter, and also Northland in the face of a new look at regional development. So interesting to hear what you're saying today. But obviously, Paul, welcome. Um, you're clearly passionate about the regions of New Zealand, Northland in particular. Can you share with us what sparked that passion in you?
Yeah, and hello, David. It's great to be here. Yeah, look, the regions are important. I actually grew up in a region. I grew up in Hawke's Bay. I spent my life in Hawke's Bay, Mahia, Gisborne, mainly surfing, I might say.
I can
Regions are great.
relate.
Yeah, so look, I grew up in Hawke's Bay, but look, I've spent my life also in working in big cities, London, Hong Kong, Sydney, Singapore, and so on. But I've always felt most comfortable in the regions. And it's the regions really that are, for me, the providers to the cities. And without the regions, we wouldn't have our cities. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm very comfortable with the regions. I grew up in them.
Oh, okay, that's nice. So just shifting a little bit to your career, you alluded a little bit to it just then, but I'll go back to your previous position. You were at Callaghan Innovation, one of the lead directors for innovation support, and then you moved to the chief executive of Northland Inc., the Regional Economic Development Agency. What do you see as the key challenges in making that shift from a national perspective to a regional perspective? And also, if you could comment a little bit about your previous role around innovation and what that means for the region as well.
Yeah, so there are a lot of commonalities. I mean, I was always with NZTE as well for a while. So there's that export lens too. But look, the issues are the same in the sense whether you're looking at a national challenge or a regional challenge. The differences tend to be in the sectors and the opportunities. So whether you're looking at tourism promotion, business attraction, R&D development, exporting and with investment. I mean, up here we look at added value to the primary sector, small business growth, startup support. Basically what we're looking at is how do we create conditions for us all to have a better life? How do we create conditions that enable us to have good jobs, to earn good money, to have a good education and look after our families? The challenge that we've had in New Zealand over the last probably 40 years is we haven't had an integrated economic strategy for the country. You know, what are we really good at? What are we going to focus on? What's both our competitive and our comparative advantages into the overseas markets? And we've had a belief that, the market will provide. And that is true to an extent. But when you look at our competitors around the world, they don't necessarily look at the global world like that. There is an invisible hand out there, and we're competing against that. So when I look at from a national perspective, I say, okay, what is central government policy to support business? What is central government policy to support workforce, education? How do we create a better life? When you look at a regional level, the questions are just the same. The solutions are different though, because the solutions for, say, Northland are going to be different to the solutions from Auckland or Wellington or Waikato or Southland. And the reason for that is in what you grow and what you build and where you work.
Yeah.
And so you need to take that national lens and toolkit. And if you can apply the toolkit to the regions and do it well, you actually might get a result.
So in some ways, you're kind of working in between the national macro level and what's happening on the ground at the micro level. You're sort of in that middle space, aren't you? Trying to connect things.
Yeah, you totally are. You're both a facilitator
Yep.
between programs and people and money. But I think if you're doing the job well, from an economic development perspective, you're also looking for real impact. And I think that's the challenge for economic development agencies and RTOs in their own space. You don't just want to be the facilitator. You actually want to figure out where can you make impact and show some wins on the board.
Right.
And each region is going to be different. So if you can get some projects up and running and actually show difference, and I think for EDAs, as you well know, given your background, there's the challenge between the long-term horizon, where an EDA's role is that long-term horizon, but also managing the fact that you've got to get some runs on the ground, and show some short-term impact. And I think that's the balance.
So, I couldn't agree more. It's very difficult being in that space, isn't it? You've actually got to prove it day in, day out. There's no escape. So you've obviously been giving this some thought, and you've laid that ground out really well there. So you've alluded to some kind of new face of economics for regional development in our economic futures. What do you see that as?
Well, in terms of the regions look, when I look at the regions versus the cities, the effort we put into the cities is good because that's where our population base is, right? And we know that. But without the regions, we won't feed the cities. We won't power the cities. We won't have the tourism locations for both international and domestic visitors, right? So we do have to focus on the regions. And that's relevant in terms of economic development because if you look at Northland, for example, we are one of the food bowls for this country, and we will be an increasingly important food bowl. This is basically food security. And when you look around the world, there's wars over water. There's been wars over food. It may well get worse given the current geopolitical situation. I don't know, but it's a lot different than what it was a year ago or 10 years ago. So food security is absolutely critical. And this is where a place like Northland comes in. So we have a lot of land. There's no doubt about that. And we've got climate change. So we're now into a program where, we're looking at what can we grow up here in terms of subtropicals, what programs we get involved in, like the Resilient Pastures program, 17 million recently announced. We've been involved in that from the beginning. And what are the programs that are going to work, that are going to make a benefit that will actually feed our society going forward? So that's a long-term horizon, if you like. Then if you look at a short-term horizon, you can say, okay, why is it that Northland is not like Hawke's Bay with Wattie's canneries and so on, or the Waikato, where you have lots of added value manufacturing jobs, right? So that's what I call the short-term ones. So you've got the long-term horizon with climate change, you've got the long-term horizon with subtropicals, and other regions will be similar, but with different crops and different things, right? Then you have the short-term horizon that says, how do you get added value manufacturing, say, into Northland? And we know what Ngāwhā Park's doing, the Ngāwhā Innovation Park, which was the lodestone of this. And so you end up going down a business attraction road, and you go down a program of inward investment. And I'm going to be really interested to see how this new Investment New Zealand entity works out and how the regions, the EDAs around the regions, can tap into that and work much more closely with them. Because, the capital in New Zealand can be limited. And we have foreign investors wanting to come, also wanting food security. Yeah. So there's a really nice feedback loop going on here. If we can work closely with local government, central government, and private investment. So that sort of links the long-term horizon with the short-term horizon.
Yeah. And I was interested to hear you talk about local specializations earlier on, and you kind of reinforced it just then. So I think that's a very valuable takeaway for us. You also mentioned Ngāwhā Innovation Park, and the work that you're doing around the food sector is fabulous. So our viewers will be interested to learn more about Northland, what drives the regional economy currently, what the challenges are, and what you perceive as the strengths of the region moving forward, and what some of the initiatives are that you think will be game changers or will change the structure of what you're dealing with already.
Sure. So Northland's got about 200,000 people. It obviously swells in summer with a massive tourism intake. We've got something like 60% of our visitors are domestic, north of Taupo. The other 40% are international. And you can just imagine what that does to the population and the infrastructure. And I know a lot of viewers have probably got batches up in Northland, and good on you, and thank you for contributing to our rates. Fantastic. But look, the economy it's over 10 billion in our GDP. But our GDP per capita is still less than the national average, across New Zealand. And if you know Northland, we've got pockets of enormous luxury and enormous wealth, and we've got pockets of real deprivation. And this is really an issue for us. The overall economy at the moment is still weak. We've only got 200,000 people. We've got a big land area. Sales in many sectors are down, just like across the country. And this is a national issue we've got at the moment. People just aren't spending. So we're trying to encourage that. I mean, we're seeing optimism, but it's not coming through yet. So bear in mind, here in Northland, we don't have huge manufacturing. We've got pockets and really good stuff in marine engineering and whangarei, boat building, there's some food manufacturing, and there's some fantastic companies. But overall, it's mainly a service industry. It's a primary-based industry. It's a tourism industry. In the primary sector, we've got agriculture, horticulture, fishing, forestry, wood processing. So it's all primary sector built upon. If we're looking forward in terms of the opportunities for us, they're massive. This is a province of New Zealand that has got some of the largest opportunities across the country because they have not yet been realised. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that, from cultural, history, government spending its time and effort somewhere else. We are a solution to Auckland in so many ways. Population growth, food, energy. If we can get solar and wind and a geothermal up and running in Northland, and a decent transmission line from the far north through to Whangarei to link up with a transmission line to Auckland, we can solve a lot of Auckland's problems with energy, and we become energy resilient.
All right, Let's dig in a little bit, because you've alluded to some of the infrastructure that's needed in terms of what drives the economy. But I'm also aware that you've been through this regional deal process, and the regions come together to decide on what those key infrastructure plays are that perhaps government can help with in the long term. So how do you, could you explain what those are, and how do you see that rolling out?
Yeah, so the regional deal process is something that, the government and politicians will decide who gets what where, and at the end of the day, with most of these things, those will be political conversations and decisions. I mean, whether we get a regional deal or not, we know we've got a great plan for Northland. We know what our priorities are, and we know what needs to change the region.
And that's music to investors' ears, that you actually know what you want.
Yep. Yeah, so we've got our plan, and we know the sectors that are important. If we can change the game on the primary sector and get added value manufacturing up here, that is the area that will create the most jobs. We know that it's quantifiable. We also know if we can supercharge the marine engineering sector in Whangarei and the yachting sector, we'll create over 1,000 high quality jobs there. If we can get the dry dock up here to support the inter-island ships and the Navy ships, then we've got a good argument for the Navy maintenance and engineering and support to be up here in Ruakaka, and we're ready for them to come. So if the government's watching this, come on up. If we look at energy, like I said, we're a solution to Auckland. And tourism, we leave money on the table when it comes to Asian visitors. We just don't have enough hotels. We've got a cluster up in the Bay of Islands. Whangarei is becoming a destination in its own right now. If it wasn't for the Huntavasa, cruise ships wouldn't be coming here. But we need 3 more high-class hotels, and we're working on that. If we can do that, we start attracting a whole different tourist market. But the most important thing that needs to change, that will open up Northland, is transport. So that 4-lane expressway we've talked about, that's now going to go from Puhoi to Tahana, it needs to go all the way to Whangarei and beyond. It needs to be done within 10 years, not 20. The Brindouins repair after Cyclone Gabriel is only going to last about 10 years, and then we'll have to spend another 80 or 100 million on it. So the discussions we're having around, the Brindouins and the whole 4-laning, if we're to do one thing, get our transport links right, and it will totally open up the north.
Yeah, that connectivity is so absolutely vital, isn't it, to open up trade and communication both ways. We all know how successful the Waikato Expressway has been. We need now a Northern Expressway. And luckily, Northland is already very well covered digitally, thanks to local organisations that took advantage of the Hawaii landing. So there's real opportunities there to open up for any kind of investment or inward investment. So I'm going to give you the opportunity now, because we've alluded to it a little bit. If you're in charge at a national level on regional development across the country, if you like, and or Northland, what would you do?
Yeah,
it's your turn.
It's a great question. Put me in the hot seat, eh?
Yeah.
Look, first thing I would do is I would get these infrastructure projects moving as fast as possible. If there's a single thing that you could do right now, and I think I wrote an article for the New Zealand Herald late last year that pretty much said the same thing, spend on those infrastructure projects. Borrow to spend if necessary, and get going, because New Zealand as a whole is being harmed by a lack of bipartisan support at central government level to get big infrastructure projects going. Look at Wellington, look at Auckland. We could have had a lot of these things done 20 years ago if only someone had stood up and been strong about it and said, we have to do this for the country. So I would say get those infrastructure goings, get the for Northland, let's get that road built fast, get the rail links done fast, get that rail spur out to Northport, expand Northport, and get it all done with less than 10 years. Now, I would back that up with a policy change, right? I would back that up, and this is what I wrote about last year. To get small businesses employed and into work as fast as possible, we need local industry participation plans, and we need local content. So we have small businesses involved in these large projects, and these prime contractors coming in, actively encouraged to employ local contractors and then held to account. Other countries do it. Australia does it very well. The States do it very well. Europe does it very well, and they do it all in different ways. So I'd be changing the policy settings to ensure our locals get that work. Again, from a Northland perspective, there's key sectors I would look at, and I would supercharge, and I'd be totally picking winners, which has not been a favourite policy statement over 20 years for New Zealand. I get that.
But, not a neoliberal statement, is it?
At least I've been consistent for 20 years. I would be looking at aquaculture, for example, up here in the north. The aquaculture market across the world is huge. And we've got a lot of interest from Asia in our kingfish and our mussels and our oysters. And it will complement what's happening in the top of the North Island. We could double our aquaculture production out of New Zealand and still we will be massively happy. Added value manufacturing with high tech you're looking at. So look, I came from Callaghan Innovation. I'm very keen on tech industries. Northland does not have a lot of tech. New Zealand lacks in a lot of tech. We need to become a tech nation, but that's not at the expense of our commodities.
Yeah,
that's building on our commodities and having robotics, having AI. So there's lots of things we could be doing, David. If I was in the seat, I'd be changing policy settings, I'd be getting infrastructure going, and I'd actually be prioritising our sectors and actually focusing on them.
Yes, and I guess you will have considered in your pitch to government that the ROE or ROI of investing in Northland from a government point of view will more than pay off the investment. Am I correct?
Totally. I mean, we've put some figures in our deal. Like I said, we may get a deal, we may not get a deal. There's lots of great pitches out there. There's lots of great regions, and I'm sure all my colleagues watching this have their own views on their regions, and so they should.
Yeah.
For our perspective, it's like we know where we are right now. We know where we've got to go. We know the projects that need to get in place. And the good thing about what we've got is we've got 4 councils up here working together.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 territorial bodies and we've got the regional council. They're all equal shareholders with equal votes in Northland Inc.
Yep.
And we work together as a team with business and with the government. So look, we've got a plan. What we do need is we don't make the decisions on the big infrastructure projects, central government makes them. So like any other region in New Zealand, we encourage the government to actually get moving, stop talking and get moving.
Yeah, I like it. Maybe that's a nice capstone for the afternoon. A lovely interview, thank you. I love where you're going in terms of trying to understand how you're going to build on your strengths, whether it's through smart tech or specialization, but also looking at the opportunities that, vital and capable infrastructure will open up for you. And once again, you're going to be able to try and weave in and embed that investment by utilizing local businesses and local sectors. So fabulous thinking there, Paul. Really congratulate you on that. And look, we wish you every success. We know it's so important for Northland and for New Zealand that the regions thrive. So thank you very much for the afternoon. Look forward to catching up, and I look forward to your article in the magazine coming up shortly.
Pleasure, David. Thank you.